education is a human service. There is a lot of humanity that's within the systems. And I think people that understand and acknowledge that humanity and all of the people, especially the students in it, how complex and important and beautiful that is, people who understand that, I think, are some of the best governors because they understand what's at stake and then they also
Mhm.
understand their role. I think where we fall down sometimes is taking too much of a technical look at it. Or there are some folks who have unique experience and they're single issue folks. And when you enter into a system of that level of complexity, I think that can be somewhat disappointing to some people when they find themselves in the role and not able to potentially move that single issue forward in the way that perhaps they had hoped.
A big part of public education in Canada are the role of trustees, and trustees have come under the gun of late, particularly in Ontario. So I follow Ontario education and Ontario education politics pretty closely. And for those of you that do know that trustees have been in the news of late, and not only that, but the government themselves has become so involved that there's questions around whether or not they're going to actually eliminate the role of trustees, which has already happened in Nova Scotia. And so I thought, you know what, we need to hear more about it from the trustees' perspective, certainly. So I reached out to the Ontario Public School Board Association, and they were kind enough to connect me with Stephanie Donaldson, who is their executive director. And Stephanie and I just had a wonderful conversation. She's a thoughtful, smart, caring human who shares not only her journey, but the perspectives of trustees in some ways that I hadn't always thought of. And so I think she does a fantastic job of helping people better understand when this is working well, why it's such an important part of our society and part of the way that public education works. And so I invite you to take some time and spend the next 40 minutes with Steffi and myself as we take and look at some of these new challenges and old challenges and what the role of trustees are in public education. So enjoy today's conversation with Stephanie Donaldson. So Stephanie, we are recording this in the midst of Blue Jay fever, and we will not, because we don't know what's going to happen. So by the time this airs, we will know what has happened.
I have a
But
prediction.
yes, so that's just context for folks. But yeah, so just like to know a little bit about you and your story and where we find you and all those kind of things for folks to know a little bit more about you.
You find me in Toronto, go Jays go. And in terms of what got me here, if I go way back, it's my own personal experience with public education. I would describe my childhood as chaotic. I went to a lot of different schools. I think 7 or 8 different schools in my journey in different cities around Ontario. And school was a lot of the time my safe place. And it was the place where I was nurtured as a human being. My talents were nurtured. It was full of opportunity for me. So then fast forward to the last few years, my career was spent mostly in the Ontario Public Service doing policy, mostly at Treasury Board. What brought me to the Ministry of Education in my last few years was we developed the School Boards Collective Bargaining Act. So we changed the way structurally the legal framework for education bargaining in Ontario. That's, I think, what really got me into education. Did that for a few years. It was just a remarkable effort too, and spent a lot of time with educators that I had never before. So I left government and then I became a trustee with the Toronto District School Board. And I served between 2018 and 2022. Interesting time during the pandemic. I also served when I was elected there as on the Toronto Board of Health too. I really got a feel for the importance of the connection between public education and public health and what incredible things can happen for communities when those two systems are working together. And I'm a mom too. I have two daughters. One just started grade 9 and one's in grade 7. And then I've been here at OPSPA, the Ontario Public School Boards Association, the last 3 years as the executive director. And so this job now it's full circle for
Yeah.
me. I've been in all of the places and spaces, I think, in education in Ontario, and this being here is a dream. There's so much opportunity for public education in Ontario, and this association is a huge asset, I think,
So
to go
it's
on.
interesting when you say early on about your kind of initial sort of belief or perspective of public education, that it was very helpful for you, that you saw it
Yeah.
as a stabilizing influence in your life. And I think about, I know educators better than I know trustees, but having had my experiences with trustees, I feel that there's obviously a significant difference when your bias is public education is really good and is positive versus, and again, they're not exclusive, but you or leaning towards somebody who feels like this thing is broken and I'm going to come and fix it. And so I wonder if you can just speak to those two different mindsets. And again, we get it, right? Like nobody is blind to the problems and isn't thinking about solving for problems. But I always say it does matter what you lead with. If you lead with ultimately this is a good system working effectively and has great people in it versus I think there's a lot of problems that have to be addressed. So I wonder to the degree to which you can speak to how people enter into the role of trustees from either one of those perspectives and how you've seen that play out in your time.
I think the people I think one of the strengths of the trustee role is that it's grounded in community. You're literally electing your neighbors. So they understand your community and what your community needs. And they've got a stake in that kind of community cohesion and development. Education is a human service. There is a lot of humanity that's within the systems. And I think people that understand and acknowledge that humanity and all of the people, especially the students in it, how complex and important and beautiful that is. People who understand that, I think, are some of the best governors because they understand what's at stake and then they also
Mhm.
understand their role. I think where we fall down sometimes is taking too much of a technical look at it or there are some folks who have unique experience and they're single issue folks. And when you enter into a system of that level of complexity, I think that can be somewhat disappointing to some people when they find themselves in the role and not able to potentially move that single issue forward in the way that perhaps they had hoped.
Yeah, and that's like drilling into that idea, right? Is okay, because you mentioned before, you're one of the beautiful things is you are somebody's neighbor and you understand those people and they have a particular bias. And I can speak to where I am here in Saskatchewan when we amalgamated with rural school districts. Of course, those folks from rural school districts have a very specific agenda. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like they're there to help and preserve their way of life. But very quickly, when they come into this larger body of work, they realize, yeah, your issue is important, but there are a whole bunch of
Yeah.
other people that
Yeah.
you're obligated to serve and think of as
Yeah.
well. So how have you seen people move from that single issue without saying your issue is not important? It's one of many issues that your role is to you're not just serving your little local folks
Yeah.
that your neighborhood. You have a bigger job than that. How do you help them?
It's democracy. I think a core value of most people in this country, the vast majority of people, is the importance of democracy, the importance of respectful dialogue and deliberation. And what I've seen in a lot of boards is the power of the other trustees around board tables to put their arms around new trustees, mentor in different ways, educate in different ways and help them to see the big picture. And there's also a lot of history and lore too and help
Mhm.
them really truly understand. And from that perspective too, because the role of school board trustee is a quite unique role too. And the only level of government in the entire country that's completely dedicated to serving children and youth, which is
Right.
also a beautiful thing.
It is. And the other thing that you make me think about is the fact that the diversity of those trustees, right? Like when you think
Yeah.
about, if I compare it to, say, a school, all of the teachers that are new teachers have had a background and that we get. Okay, so I know your path, but you get somebody that's elected that is whatever, a stay-at-home parent versus somebody who's been working in the corporate side of things. They come with very different understandings of things,
Yeah.
and so that the degree to which you create and again, I don't even know if you could call it a community within your group of
Yeah.
trustees. That's gotta be a challenge.
Yeah, and it's you have to have a good leadership culture too, right? Because you're all leaders in your community. You are coming at it from different perspectives. But if you believe that you can learn and grow together and be leaders representing the entire system together in a healthy way, then there's going to be, I think, some effort and dedication that's put to that. In my own experience as a trustee, I I had a trustee who we disagreed on everything all the time. And we deliberately called each other all the time to help understand what the other's angle was on a particular issue. And it often helped us to move the entire board along, actually, because we understood each other's
Yeah, I love that.
perspectives. And then we could talk amongst the rest of our colleagues to try to move things to the right direction, understanding everybody's angle and perspective. And also, each person's perspective very grounded in their community. I was a trustee in the city of Toronto, extremely diverse communities across this city, all needing to be represented, and almost 250,000 students with diverse needs being served too. So yeah, that deliberation, collaboration, and leadership culture, I think, is really important. What makes things work.
I am such a big fan of any time I hear about people from opposite sides of an issue politically or whatever, who figure out a way to coexist and to appreciate each other's opinions and move forward together. There's a magic in that
Yep.
piece. And as you said, it then impacts the entire,
Yep.
because people watch how do these two navigate this situation. And if they can do it, given we know they do not think the same in so many areas, but if they can somehow figure out a way to get, like, that's the gold star to me of democracy, I guess.
Yeah, but it's also how great co-creation works too. It's a creative tension between the two opposites, and you put them together and you actually have you have a greater possibility of creating something even better
Right.
through that.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you say the difference is between your earliest days in these roles, trustee role, and today? Is there a difference? Is it basically the same thing, or is it different from when it was a decade ago or so?
Oh, policymaking is wildly different from what it was 20 years ago. And it's smartphones and social media and the pace of the media cycle and the business model of
Mhm.
media too. How people get their information, how they engage with it, how they digest it. It's completely changed the game on policy making. We used to spend a lot of time and took a very technical approach to it, looking at all of the options, like involving stakeholders, all of that. And sometimes things would take months, years for things to come to fruition in terms of a developed policy that would be turned into legislation and introduced. Now, it's what's in the media cycle. It's what the pollsters are polling on. It's what might blow up on social media over a weekend. It's wildly different,
Mm.
completely different policymaking space.
And so what does that mean for individual trustees in terms of their skill set or their mindset as they take on these roles?
I think a lot of policy development, big P, big D, is happening outside government at this stage. And organizations like ours are really important to that. And other nonprofit associations like ours are really important to that because the discussion and the dialogue and the debate on what makes good policy is happening outside of government, and stakeholders are providing what their assertions are for what would make good policy. And then you need to just make sure that you have the right moment you have the right public opinion, all of that for it to actually come to fruition. So, yeah.
It certainly has been in the news lately. There's rumblings talking about the Ontario government potentially eliminating trustees. We've seen it happen in Nova Scotia. They abandoned their local school boards. I've had some conversations with executive. They're actually called, I don't think they're called superintendents or directors. They're called executive director. They have a different title, essentially same as directors of education in Ontario and superintendents in other provinces. And I've talked to them about it, and they share some of the pros about it. One of them being fewer meetings for sure, and fewer personalities to navigate, because now they're essentially reporting to one person. But they also have talked about some of the consequences of what that is and how they're trying to navigate that one. How do you respond to people who think about, maybe we should abandon the role of trustees? Maybe they aren't doing what we think they should do. So what's the response to that?
I have many responses.
I'm sure you do. That's why I asked you.
It's interesting because I think there's always space to talk about how to do things better. And especially in systems that are not working for everybody all the time, those conversations are critically important. Emphasis on the word conversation. I think it's really important for there to be a public dialogue about it with all stakeholders at the table. So there's that. I think local decision making is a very deeply held value across Canada. And I've seen that reinforced in a lot of the polls that have come out since this conversation started by the current Minister of Education, about his public musings about eliminating trustees. Seen a lot of polls that reinforce what I already knew personally, that the system as it's currently structured is the system that is preferred, but there's always room for improvement. So I would say my hope is that we use this current space and time as an opportunity to talk about how we can do better for students all together, and that we are reminded of the importance of local democracy and local voice. And what makes public education really work across systems, I think, is that it's relevant and responsive. And the best way to get that done is the closest you can get to each and every school, which is a local school board and local governance.
I mean, I really appreciate that response from so many perspectives. I think first, the fact that you began with, hey, we're open to, if that is truly the better way of doing things, let's talk about that. We're
Yep.
not going to stop that. But the other thing that you bring to mind for me is, and I wish I remembered the person who presented this argument. It might have been Malcolm Gladwell, but I don't want to say it fully. He talked about one of the worst things that's happened to our society, especially going back to your reference about the media, is
Yeah.
the loss of the local newspaper. He said that has done more
Yes.
damage to political polarization, because he said, and I know this, and you would know this to be true, that 20 years ago, people spent the time they invested in politics was 80% local, 20% global federal. And now that's flipped, because we don't know what's going on in our local community, but we know what Donald Trump is doing. We know what people all around the world, and that's consuming us. Those are the things we have almost no control over. There's nothing we can do about that. We can do something about what's happening in local politics and local school boards. Yeah, because I can talk to my trustee, I can talk to my council member and say, hey, why are they building that new road over there? Whatever the issue is. But we don't have access to that. That's not part of the way we think, because we're given all of these massive global issues that stress us out, freak us out, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I love the fact that what you pointed to is the ability for us to actually make a difference in our local communities. And so I think that is a strong, probably one of many arguments that you would have to advocate for the maintenance of local school boards.
Yeah, and just to build on what you were just talking about too, where local media does still exist, part of the element of democracy that we have in local school boards is these are open public meetings. So local media will attend these public meetings, and that's where they're getting a lot of their source of information too. They're understanding what the issues are in the community, and the school board has an opportunity to tell those really great stories about what's actually happening in the schools and what beautiful things are happening for students too, that go right back to their own local community, which is being
Right.
invested in, which, yeah,
But at the same time, unfortunately, news, generally speaking, is less interested in the really good things that are happening and more interested in the more salacious things that might be happening. So with that in mind, can you tell me, think of a story that would highlight, you talked about the example you gave about your colleague who you disagreed with, but I wonder if you've got a story that you think, whether it's locally the you experience or even a provincial perspective, that would really highlight the role of trustees in a positive light. So just something that said, because of the role of trustees, and again, they're supposed to be a bit behind the scenes. They're not supposed to be the front and center of it. I get it. But at the same time, you would know examples of where trustees have really helped come to the rescue, create something new. However you want to frame that, but I love a story that.
I mean, there's a huge list in Ontario: full day kindergarten, parent involvement in schools, safe schools, Indigenous education, concussion policies, vaping, cell phone use, social media, boards in Ontario who are actually engaged in a litigation against the social media
Right.
company too. So there are tons and tons of dental programs in schools, like community-based programs that have a ton of value in the community, that innovation is then later scaled up to the provincial level and becomes provincial policy too. There are a myriad of examples in every province on that. I think one of the latest stories, which also goes to our conversation about the media too, we did a northern tour that was presented by the chair of our northern region, Bill Steer, and he brought us to us OPSPA, brought us to a school in Superior Grainstrom District School Board, which is a very small school board at top end of Lake Superior near Thunder Bay, and took us to a school, Niprock High School, where the principal and working with trustees has put together a program that has students from First Nations actually building houses. And some of the funding comes from the CMHC as
Mhm.
well and other funders. And the houses that they build with the teachers that are supporting the builds of these houses go back to their home community too, for folks to live in, which is incredible. It also has a land-based learning component too, which is responsive to the students they're serving as well. And so we saw this program, we saw it at work, we met the kids, we saw them hammering the nails in. We came back to Toronto and we talked to some of the national newspaper folks, and the next thing we knew, it was being highlighted in a Globe and Mail article. Local media can do one thing, but then there's also organizations like ours that have the opportunity to amplify these incredible programs that are really change making across the system too. Because that's good policy is a bit of a sales job too. So we need the media
Mhm.
to be able to tell these great stories, to create this great policy and create more of it too.
Yeah. Oh, that's again fantastic. And you listed so many specific examples of what your organization and what your roles do. Fantastic. I'm going to just shift a little bit just to talk a little bit more about you and your, again, the theme of my show is leadership, right? And we talked really extensively about the broadest role of trustees, but I'm thinking about you individually because you're a leader obviously in the various capacities that you've served over the years. And I would just like people to share a challenge and how they navigated that. Again, this would be a long list of things that have been challenges over the years and maybe something specific to your role of trustees. So what has been, and again, you could piggyback on the example you shared about the colleague. That was a challenge, but there's lots of them. So is there one that you can just want to share that I think maybe people would find useful in the sense of the complexity of it that really pushed your thinking one way or the other? And even I'm always happy to hear stories where there wasn't maybe a happy ending to it. Like you just, yeah, like that wasn't the result that I wanted, but it was still a learning experience. So whatever criteria you want. So just love to hear one challenge.
First of all, thank you for talking about leadership and education. I wish that we all talked about it a lot more. So your leadership and talking about leadership was very appreciated
Thank you.
and very needed. Yeah, I love a good challenge. I do have a lot to choose from. I think the one that stretched me to beyond what I thought my limits were at the time was the serving in a public role during the pandemic. I was vice chair of the Toronto Board of Health, and then I was also elected to the TDSB. And then I also sat on both provincial association boards as well. I had a full-time job and I had a 6 and an 8-year-old at home.
You're already making me tired. Just you don't even have to go any further with that story. I already am like, my word.
It was a lot. It was a lot. But what I understood at the time was that I had a leadership obligation at all of those tables. And part of my leadership obligation being in public health and in education was to put the two together at an incredibly critical time where the facts were shifting multiple times a day. So I think one of the issues that was really important to me during that time was, one, data-driven decision making, and two, listening to the experts. So TDSB did their own work on data gathering. Toronto Public Health and the City of Toronto did their own work on data gathering. So one of the things that I did was try to work with both parties to get them talking, get them sharing, especially on the data. And it had a lot of really good results. But one of the ones that I think I'm most proud of, and I think a lot of the trustees who were around our table at the time would probably say the same, is we used the public health data in terms of where the hotspots were in the City of Toronto, because there were very particular hotspots at that first part of the pandemic. We used that data to put more resources into the schools in those hotspots so that we could enable more social distancing and just help those students, because there were areas of the city that struggled in many different ways too. And the data showed that we actually did, with those investments and with that targeting, make a difference in terms of stemming the uptick in cases in those areas. So I think, yeah, the challenge during a crisis is getting the right people talking at the right time, getting the right data shared at the right time, and making sure that your decisions are based on evidence, not on feeling and hearsay. So yeah, that was a challenge that I think we were all up for, and there were good results.
In the midst of those things, you are fully aware of the fact that whatever decision you make is going to make not everybody's going to be cheering for you, right? There's always going to be, and you know that in so many decisions, right? There's no decision in those kind of complexities where it's everybody's, yay, we did the right thing. There's that, again, as you said, you stand on the evidence. You begin with, I guess, the principles of, we have a trust in the experts, right? Which a lot of people don't right now. So now you're battling people who question everything. Listen, I can't live my life without putting some trust in people. And that's not to say they can never be wrong. I get it. But I can't move forward when I don't believe anybody or anything. Like, where do we go from here? So anyway, I so admired the way in which people navigated that, and schools tried to figure that out. And even if I look across Canada, the way it was done, not exactly the same. But again, this is my trust in public education, in people like yourselves and others, that I know they're trying to do their very best. And I know that the decision they make I might not agree. Everybody might not agree, but at the very least, I know they're trying to do the best thing. There's no ulterior motive here. There's no people trying to play a funny game here. This is a really hard thing that you're making your best guess, like you said, with the data we have now. So again, I hope that history treats all of these people really well, no matter how the evidence, whatever, we might find out 10 years later, as we know more about science, that maybe we did things wrong. I don't know. But I know that in the moment, I felt like people made really good decisions that were very difficult to make, that they knew they were not getting everybody excited about this. There's still people who look back and are criticizing.
I'll tell you one thing I learned through all of that, and I'm still learning, in the impact of isolation on the human body
Oh, wow.
and brain. And I've been reflecting on the importance of belonging constantly
Mm-hmm.
since before the pandemic ended. And I think I think there's so much that the public education system can give in
Yeah.
this regard. That's one of the incredible things that the public education system does, is the focus on belonging too.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to my personal experience as a kid too, that's exactly what I felt. Like, it is one of the key strengths that we have in this country that
Yeah.
we should be leaning on more as a
Right.
solution to our.
There's many voices who don't acknowledge that, and that often does come from a place of privilege. Yeah, because you have a family support, you have all kinds of things that not every kid has, and not
Yeah.
every family has. And so schools, public education is there to uplift everybody and identify kids who need more than others.
Yeah.
And
Another thing we did during the pandemic with the city through the Board of Health was student nutrition programs. A lot of poverty is a huge issue in this
yeah.
country. Child poverty is not getting any better. There's lots of families who rely on student nutrition programs. If the kids aren't in school, there's no nutrition program.
Mhm.
So we took the funds, we made grocery cards, and school administrators delivered them to families. Even in the height of a pandemic, we still make it happen among
Well,
these systems.
and Toronto, all big cities, but Toronto in particular has the diversity of wealth and
Yeah.
poverty. It's probably a way larger gap than in certainly my community and others. And so to be able to, for the, because, and the person, certainly people that are in authority and power are often skewed towards the more wealthy side of it, to be able to identify that, like, we have a large community of people here that need something that we can do this thing. So anyway, that's just, I would say congratulations to you and the way that people handle that, because I don't think they get enough credit for that.
Yeah, we all did it together. We really truly were all in it together.
Yes. So as you think about whether it's a brand new trustee or just a young person, maybe an older person too, who thinks they want to get into this, they think, maybe I would make a good trustee. Maybe I should think about this. What advice do you give them early on to help them think about and or prepare for a future in that kind of public service, specifically a trustee?
Don't wait. Step in, step up. The only way you can get the best way to gain confidence is through action. You're going to fail and you're going to win sometimes, but the important thing is to start. You really need a support network. Mentors are the best. I think one thing that I've learned in the last 5-6 years that I now talk to all sorts of young people about is a mindfulness practice. So any way you can take time out to actually reflect and process what has happened and get a little bit of distance on it to give you a little perspective to go on is really important. I meditate every day for 10 minutes. It's changed my whole frame of mind. It's changed my whole concept of time. I no longer feel rushed to do anything. Things happen in their time, and big decisions, little decisions, they all require a little bit of space before you make them. And the other thing I tell people is never work in isolation. That's not how that's it's not a healthy way to work. It's
Mhm.
not, especially in human services like this. The best things that happen, in my opinion, happen through collaboration and co-creation. If you're not involving others, you're robbing everybody of the opportunity to make things better
Yeah.
together, which is also, like, that type of innovation is the stickiest type of
Right.
innovation too.
And that's actually, in some respects, a relatively new and still challenging concept in public education, because number one, as teachers, it's an inherently isolating role. You can wake up in the morning, get to school, go in your classroom, close the door, leave, and not talk to another adult at all. You can do that if you want. And there are a few teachers who
Yeah.
sometimes choose that role. I get it. And so that's a hard thing to break in that model. And the other thing is, and this is part of the joy of the work that I've done, even the work I'm doing right now in Ontario with code, is the collaboration between districts, which is hard to do, right? Because you're busy doing your own thing. And so it's not a often a choice that I'm choosing not to collaborate. Same with the teacher in the classroom. It's just the structure of your day and your organization is such that being able to learn from those outside of your purview. And I think too, the other thing that I'm noticing is the most successful organizations are the ones you talked about taking a trip to Superior Greenstone, which is in many respects as vastly different from TDSB as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But the point of it is what could there's everybody you can learn from. So even though, you might say that's such a different structure, we do things differently, so I can't really learn from them. That's just nonsense. And so
Yeah.
the degree to which you can create a community of people who diversity, right? Different size, different organization, different part of the world.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like you take and cookie cutter what they did over here. It's going to have a different context for sure. Yes. But that's the part that I'm jazzed about. I continue to love is like when I can actually bring together the TDSBs and the Superior Greenstones. It's like, you guys can talk. Like I tell the story all the time. One of my proudest moments when I was working here at the local school district here in Saskatchewan, and I was largely in charge of professional learning, and I would bring together and I would put a kindergarten teacher in a room with a chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
Which at first they go, we can't learn from each other. And I go, I think you might. And you
Yeah.
give them time and they talk about assessment, they talk about kids, and they talk
Yeah.
about, skill development and what that looks like. And you realize they can learn from each other. And
Yeah.
like, that's a very proud moment I would have. It was like a little bit of a matchmaker to bring these people together because I knew if they give it time, you can really grow and learn together. So yeah, I think
It's one of the things I love about working in the education sector is we are learning organizations. So there is an inherent
that's
culture of
right.
curiosity, which is just, it brings me so much.
We can't forget that. That's what we're here to
No.
do. All right. Tough question. People don't like this question, but I'm asking it anyways. You have to pick one person, not 10, not 100, which you could, but one person that you're particularly grateful for in education. So this could be something that happened recently. It could be somebody that brought you a coffee that you just want to call out today. It could be something you're thinking about 20 years ago. I don't care what, but you only get one person and bonus points
Yeah.
if it's possible that they actually might hear this and get a little shout out. You don't have to do it that way, but I'm just throwing that out as I'll give you bonus points if you can do that.
This is a really hard
I
question.
know it is. I told you it was hard. That's why I don't care. I'm asking
All
you
right.
anyway.
Okay. I'm going to keep it very personal. And I think it's Mrs. Viscontis, my grade 11 English teacher. Okay. So it's because I went to an all girls Catholic school for high school, part of high school. And she used to walk into our class each morning and she would say, girls, you are the leaders of tomorrow. And I remember when she first started saying it, I thought it was like hokey because I was a kid, but I can't tell you how many times I have reflected on that throughout my life because it was an instruction manual for us and also a bit of a mission that she was giving us every morning too. And by the end of that year, it became a core belief for me. Like I did think I am a leader of tomorrow
You are.
and this is my mission. So I better step up and get it done. Thanks, Mrs. Viscontis.
Mrs. Viscontis. That is a great call out. I love that. And I think it does. It reminds me. So even it reminds me of I'm a relatively new grandparent. And
Oh,
so
congrats.
my older kids are like, yeah, they're fine, but they're nothing like grandkids. Like I hope one day you get this experience because it's as much as you might love your kids.
So do I. My kids are way too young to tell them that.
I get it. But you just like Mrs. Viscontis planted that seed. I'm planting this seed with you that this will be an amazing thing. But what she shared is this sort of hokiness of, and sometimes you think, why would I even say that? But it makes an impact when somebody says, you have what it takes to be successful. And that's cheesy, but no. But if she's saying that, she obviously said that more than once and she made that's the thing. And even your 16-year-old brain at the time going, "Oh, whatever." It was getting in there, and I love
Oh, yeah.
that story. That's such a good story. It's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
great shout out. All right, a couple quick questions just to get you on your way, and again, appreciate so much. Tell me anything you're reading or listening to for your own kind of learning and personal, professional growth.
Oh, okay, on personal professional, this is my book that I have on my desk all the time. It's The
Okay?
Governance Core. That
Yep.
is an important book for me. I refer to it often. School board superintendents and schools working together. The good one. Okay, this is not a book, but I'm listening to this podcast
Yes,
right now called
podcast count.
Go Boy. Have you heard of this one?
I have not.
Okay, so it's the story of this man named Roger Caron, who is Canadian. I think he's passed away now. He has escaped from more jails than anybody who's been incarcerated in Canada ever.
That sounds fun.
And he wrote a book about his experience that I guess was a bestseller in the 70s. So this podcaster has taken this book and pieced together a story in podcast format. But I think I'll give some of it away. The punchline is education saved his life.
Okay.
And he met the librarian in Kingston Penitentiary. He started in jail when he was 12 years old. And I think he spent the most amount of time in solitary confinement than any human ever in Canada. Anyways, he started writing. And he wrote this incredible manuscript, which became bestseller and convinced the parole officers to give him parole. And then he did this insane book tour telling his story. And yeah,
So this is a podcast series then? Like episodes? Okay,
Go
I like
Boy.
it.
Well,
All
yeah.
right, I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay, what about just for other than watching the Blue Jays, what you got like a guilty pleasure or anything like that? That's just, this is mindless, but I need a little mindless viewing.
Okay, I'm only watching Blue Jays
I
lately,
know that,
but
but like, go
I
back,
have
maybe
my
summer. Okay,
go-to is the National Geographic channel
okay.
because I don't know if it's my city living thing because really I just love to be in the forest constantly all the time.
That's your
So,
escape.
yeah, my escape is especially the ones about whales.
Okay, you're at the
Like,
whales.
they cry like
Listen, all the work I do with AI, one of the stories that I tell or examples is that they're actually developing AI to learn dolphins and whales speaking. They're trying to be able to speak with creatures. They're close. They can almost be able to speak with them. So there you go.
they
For
have a
that.
lot to say. I'm sure of
I'm
it.
sure they do. I'm sure they do. Okay, last question. Visitors to Toronto, can you do a quick Google search and they go to the CN Tower or down by the waterfront or all the museums or whatever. But I want you as an insider to give me like, here's a place, could be a restaurant, could be a little park, could be just something that the average person might not pick up on, but you should check this place out. So chance to give a little hidden gem of yours.
Another tough question.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to eat in Toronto.
Yes,
Like
you
some of the
do.
best restaurants
Okay.
on the
I've eaten a
planet.
lot of restaurants in Toronto, but give me one that I
Anywhere,
might not have gone.
anywhere in Chinatown. My favorite Vietnamese restaurant is called Pho Lin. It's near College in Dufferin. So
Okay.
good. Hidden gems. The Rouge National Park, an incredibly preserved, beautiful, gigantic park in Scarborough, that
Oh,
right beside the Toronto Zoo, which a lot of people don't know about.
I don't know about that.
Incredible hiking, beautiful views. Toronto, again, beautiful views. Toronto Island,
Yeah.
anything on Toronto Island, gorgeous. There's the Humber River. You can paddle the Humber River as well, which is another beautiful little escape within the city. Toronto's got everything.
It does.
Yeah,
It
it
is a
really
great
did.
city. As much as my son and daughter-in-law still live in Toronto. Yeah, I'm in on Toronto.
Yeah, and you gotta go to a Jays game if you can when you're
You do.
here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you sit; they're
Yeah.
all good seats in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. We went,
Highly recommend your Raptors game. So entertaining.
I've been as a Raptors game years ago, not since they have done all their stuff. That might be on my list. Anyway, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. It's one of those ones where we didn't meet until about an hour ago, but I feel like, we had such a good chat. Like this is somebody that I would call up and say, hey, let's go for a coffee sometime and learn more about what you're doing because I love it.
I can't wait to have coffee with you next time
Okay.
you're in Toronto or I'm in Saskatchewan. Or
Great.
yeah.
That's right. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.